name is Heather McGee, and this is the Happily Never After, a podcast that explores how life's endings can lead to a personal breakthrough. Because sometimes the end is just the beginning. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Happily Never After, a podcast where we explore how life's endings can lead to a new beginning. If you enjoy the show, please don't forget to rate, review, and follow us wherever you are listening or watching the show today. My guest today is Drea Renee, a media personality, host, longtime poker insider, which I just learned about you, and I think it's fascinating. And she has spent over a decade on some of the biggest stages in the game, from the World Poker Tour to PokerGO, the World Series of Poker. She is also the co-host of the hit podcast, Hey Babe, Can We Talk? A show that dives into modern dating, relationships, and self-growth with humor, honesty, and heart. I love the real conversations that you're having over there. I think they're really great.
Thank
And I'm so
you.
glad you're here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Now, Drea, this is a show about how life's endings can lead to a new beginning. What have been some of the biggest endings in your life?
I think the biggest ending would probably be my relationship with drinking. That was an ending that
Okay.
happened in my life about 16 years ago. And then that just changed the trajectory of my entire life. And I think at that time, it took me a few years to just kind of realize like it wasn't working. It didn't happen overnight, kind of like with a breakup or, ending of a friendship. These things sort of seeds get planted and you're like, wow, this isn't working. This isn't working. And I feel like the universe, God, or whatever you choose to believe in gives you these little like soft taps of like, hey, I think we need to try something else. So that would probably be the first big ending of my life where things took a big left turn and in a really beautiful way where I was able to then show up to myself, show up to my family, show up to my friends and be the woman that I really wanted to be because I feel like I was covering up who I really was. I was covering up my feelings and I just wasn't showing up as a woman of integrity at that time.
And you said that you could see it wasn't working. It wasn't working. Like, what about it was not working for you?
So for me, I would go out for an evening and sort of make plans of what I thought the evening would go like. And then once I added this part into my life, my evening just took a left and I could not keep my word at that time. And I was like, this does not feel good. Like I was missing appointments, missing engagements with friends, missing events. I was acting at the time, missing auditions. And I was like, this just isn't working. And I journal. I've journaled since I was 13 and I knew it, it's like we know. And if we are truly quiet with ourselves, the answer is there. We may not want to confront the answer. We may not want to deal with it. And it is really hard to confront yourself and to think, wow, this does not work for me. And going into that zone of discomfort was not something I really wanted to do, right? Because now my friend groups are going to be different because my whole lifestyle is going to be different. And I was really scared to do it, but I knew it just wasn't working, and I didn't like who I was. I didn't like how I felt. I didn't like waking up in the morning and having to kind of piece the evening together to figure out like, what did I do? What did I say? Checking text messages. And so it started out as a cleanse, right? I was going to do like 30 days, give myself a break, get sort of back in the groove of work and all these things. And then it was 6 months. And then I said, oh, you know what? Let me just go for a year. And then I thought, my life is changing for the better. Like I really don't need it anymore. And it was so interesting because, as I have my podcast on dating, it really affected my dating life, like
I was about to
dramatically.
ask about that. Yeah. What happened there? How did that change things? Because I have to imagine dating was a lot different after making that
Girl,
change in your
well,
life.
now when I go on dates, I have to really like the person. There's no liquid courage and there's no alcohol just covering up or maybe hiding the red flags. Not that it changed that part dramatically, but I was able to really see like, oh, this isn't working. And then even in terms of intimacy, that changed too, and I had to take a really hard look at that as well. Ultimately, it's been such a great filter with dating because if you need me to be there with you and drinking, and honestly, I get it if some people are like, hey, I want to enjoy a glass of wine or whatever with my partner. I totally get it. But I think it is an interesting moment when I say I don't drink and what that means for the other person and how they react tells me a lot about them.
Okay, so in dating, how do you feel like what range of drinking are you comfortable with in the people you date? Do you seek out people who are also sober, or is it okay if they drink? Like, how do you also approach that aspect of dating?
So ideally, I would prefer someone that wasn't drinking on a regular basis, right? I did date a guy for many years who was a heavy drinker, and it was really difficult. It was really difficult. And in the beginning, he had told me because he had been previously sober and that he thought it was, a sign from God. He met me, he was going to get sober. But at the end of the day, if somebody wants to change that path in their lives, they got to do it for themselves, not for your family, not for your kids, not for your job. It has to be for you. So we struggled a lot with this particular thing. And just like how I was in my life, he wasn't able to show up for me in the best way because everything was covered with alcohol and all the other things he was doing. So it was difficult. And then I dated a guy for 5 years who didn't drink at all. He wasn't like in the program or anything like that. He just didn't have a relationship with alcohol. And it was great because in the beginning, I will say, when I did make this life change, it was hard to kind of feel comfortable, right? I always felt like I had to figure out a way to hold something that looked like a cocktail. So I would always get like a club soda with a lime. That way, maybe people around, like I cared so much about what they thought and like, oh yeah, 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 we're drinking together or whatever.
Yeah.
But as the journey continued, I don't really care anymore. And if you need that, I'm not your person. And also, when people get to know me, they're like, "Yeah, you don't need to drink. Like, it's totally fine, Drea. Like, you do not need to." Like, I have so much energy, and I went to Burning Man recently, and I go completely sober, and people think I'm on something. I'm just really present and enjoying the moments. And I remember when I was drinking and doing all that in my 20s, I would think about my wedding day. And I would think, "Man, I can't wait to do karaoke and be drunk with my husband." Right? And that's such a beautiful moment. That's such a life-defining moment. And later on, I thought, "Why would I wanna miss that? Why would I not wanna be present and show up for that?" And I want a partner who also wants to show up for that. So, to answer your question, I don't mind if someone has a healthy relationship with alcohol. Like, it doesn't turn me off or anything like that. But as somebody who, did not have a great relationship with it back in the day, I know what it looks like. And when I see it, I'm like, okay, this is not going to be the person for me because they still have a lot of work to do on themselves and they're not going to be able to show up for me anyway.
Well, and today, so the main thing we're going to talk about today is dating and relationships. But you're bringing up such an interesting topic because this does all fly into how can you have a good, healthy, fulfilling relationship if getting yourself together. From the way you're talking about, what I'm hearing is that it was like holding you back, and that you are more yourself today than you were back then.
Absolutely, I am more myself. And I think about it before when I was like 16, 17, right? I don't think anyone's ever called me an introvert. Like, I'm pretty outgoing. If there's something going on, there's a party, I'm in the room. But I remember this moment when I was really young and I was at a club and it was like the first time I went out and I was kind of shy and nervous. I didn't want to get on the dance floor. And there was something really beautiful about that moment because it just showed, I was nervous and I did care what people thought at that time and just kinda, like, figuring myself out, right? It was like this pure, clear journey that I was on. And then, you're with your friends, everybody's, like, maybe drinking or doing other things, and you wanna be a part of that. And I think I really covered up these really beautiful parts of myself. And so now when I'm fostering and building relationships, whether it be with work, friends, or whatever, they know that it's full on real, present, raw. And I mean what I say because there's nothing that's covering it up. And so that's one of the really beautiful things. And I still struggle, obviously, like there's no perfect path at all. There's definitely still things that I struggle with, especially people pleasing. But I am authentic. I am myself. And also when I am with someone, I'm like, you're getting all of me, the real me. And I have done so much work on myself through this journey of putting this down that they know I'm gonna be able to show up with integrity and really be a good, healthy partner. I mean, to the best of my ability, I still struggle with some things, but yeah.
Yeah. Nobody's perfect. You can be close to
No.
perfect, but not all the way.
Yeah, or yeah, I've got some stuff to work on for sure.
Have you had any relationships or even breakups in your life that were defining for you,
Yes.
that you still hang on to, or not hang on to, but like they really meant something to you?
You know what's interesting about that question is I love that where I'm at in my life right now, I don't really have any residual thoughts about my exes, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that. But I will say the breakup that was really defining was the partner that had the unhealthy relationship with alcohol. We were together for 4 years, and I was such a I forgive myself now, you know? And I think sometimes when we go through these breakups, we can be shameful. How could you let yourself do that? Why did I do that? What was I thinking? And I think it's really important to give yourself some grace for that person that you were. And one of the beautiful things about getting older is that you realize there's different iterations of yourself, right? There's different versions of yourself, there's different growing versions of yourself. And at that time, I did not have the self esteem that I really needed to have to show up in a relationship. I needed the validation. I needed just someone to say, yes, you, right? And I really fought for it. And the beginning of that relationship really did set the tone for the whole relationship. And it was just essentially me chasing him for the majority of the relationship. Love me, love me, love me, please love me. And, you know, to anyone listening right now that's going through that, it's like, it doesn't have to be hard like that. It really doesn't have to be that difficult, you know, not for something where you're healthy. And when you do start to have that realization, like, this needs to end, it's scary. And so I'm doing this for, you know, 3, 4 years. And I didn't want to get back out into the dating game. I really didn't. I was like, I don't want to do this. But this guy was so, you know, and it's interesting. We had a conversation recently and he admitted, you know, how terrible he was to me. And I mean, he really was. And I allowed it. And then once I actually found my strength in that relationship, which was so interesting. Like I found my value, I found my integrity, and it was towards the end. And I remember I woke up one day and I was thinking, this does not match how I feel about myself anymore. Because for the longest time, he was a reflection of how I truly felt about myself. I didn't deserve it. I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't talented enough. All these things were reflected in who I was seeing. And so I remember the moment where I woke up and it no longer made sense. And it was such a beautiful moment, but also such a painful moment because now I have to take the action to make the change. And that's really scary.
Well, it's like, gosh, I'm actually having a moment here because you're making me think too about some of the big breakups I've had, and looking back on them, I didn't even like them, but I was hanging on to them so hard, or I didn't feel good in that
Yes.
relationship. Like, why do we do that? It's not like they loved me, I loved them, and it just
No,
didn't work out, we moved on. It's like, looking back on it, it was either so unhealthy or so bad for me, or even at the most basic level, I think about it and I'm like, "They didn't like me and I didn't like them, but I dated them for years.
for
Why did I do
years,
that?"
Heather, for years. And I remember waking up and I really pay attention to how my body physically responds to things, even friends, even around family. Anything, right? And I would wake up with this like elephant on my chest every day and just power through it. You know what I mean? Pushed through it. And then it became the norm. It became the norm. And so it was like, wake up, struggle, 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 get through it and just try to like fight through the day. And you're right. I don't know if we liked each other. You know, I knew that he liked what I provided for him, but was he in love with me? I don't think so because our actions and relationship wasn't reflective of that. And it was really difficult to like have a good day. I think we had a couple pockets in 4 years that were really great, but most of it was pretty tumultuous. And I remember when one of his really good friends was like, Dre, what are you doing? Like I love my friend, but you're amazing. Like this should not be happening. Right. And that was a really
Yeah.
defining moment for me.
Well, it kinda shows too, people get together for all kinds of reasons, and I would say
Yeah.
only sometimes is it about love, you know? Like, 2 people get drawn together for a whole myriad of different reasons, either 'cause it's, like, they like what that person brings to their life, or they're like a trophy, like, it makes them feel better about
Exactly.
themselves, or they, like, trigger something really deep in you where you just hang on real tight because 'cause you're trying to fix it, and it becomes really toxic. Now, after going through that breakup, and it sounds like when you left, it feels like that was, like, actually when you got healthy to say, "This is not right for me," and to move on, perhaps.
Well, I then well, so
You're like,
I
"Later."
later, girl. So I did quickly sort of jump into something else, and I was really excited because I thought, "This guy is different. He's showing up differently." And then later on, I realized some of those old habits from my ex were then showing up in this guy, and even some ways not even like worse, you know? And so I still had some work to do. I think with this next person, the first 2, 3 weeks were magical, and I really got lost in that. It was just nice to feel affection, to feel safe. I did like this person at that time, and so I didn't give myself enough time in between. So then after this breakup with this next person, that was also a defining moment. I then took the space to work on Drea. And that was when a lot of things changed. I got off the dating apps. I really just figured out, Drea, what is it that you even like? You know, my therapist said to me one day, she's like, do you even like him? And it just wasn't even something I thought about. It just wasn't even, I was like, I don't know. Why are you asking me this? You know
We
what I
never
mean?
ask ourselves that very basic question. Do you even like this man or this
Yeah.
person or whoever you're with or dating or talking to? Do you even like them?
Do
Because we
you
get so tied
like
up in
them?
like, do they like me? And then you decide if you like them. Then sometimes
Exactly.
at that point, you don't even care anymore if
No,
whether you like them or
if
not.
they like me, that's the end of the sentence. And, you know, this is something that we should ask even about our friends, even about the people that we work with, that we're spending time with, you know, because time is like all we have and it's so valuable. And it should be, you know, an asset to and bring somebody into our lives. It shouldn't just be it's open for everybody. It should be like an exclusive club. Let me check the list. Let me see if you're on here and I'll get back to you. But I think sometimes,
Yes.
especially for people like me, I'm really nice. I'm really open. I care a lot about people. And I don't say this in this like martyr way, but I genuinely do. But that gets me in trouble sometimes because I don't always have the discernment. And then even when, like I said at the beginning, you know, I think if we get really quiet with ourselves for just a moment, your body really does keep the score. That's a great book. And you
Yeah.
know, especially romantically, when it's like, this does not feel good. Because when you do find someone that kinda checks those boxes, you're like, "Oh my god, what was I doing before?" Right?
Yeah. It kind of knocks you over.
Yeah.
I do think whenever someone's coming off of a heartbreak or like a big breakup, or a divorce, something like that, I always think about, well, I think there is a place for dumpster fire dating. I really, I'm not that person
Oh,
that's
yeah.
like, "Oh, you need to be alone for 3 years and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
go
yeah,
on a
yeah.
date." I don't believe in
For
that.
sure, yeah.
Just, like, be aware of what's happening. You're gonna act differently going out to dinner if you're starving. You're gonna be more in control of yourself, make the choices you actually wanna make if you're not starving, and so whenever we go into the dating pool and we are starved for affection, starved for self-esteem, we're gonna act differently than if we are maybe a little healthier, just a
That's a
little healthier.
really good point. That's a really good point. I just had a girlfriend recently. She has not been on any dates or anything since her breakup, nothing real. And then she recently went out with this guy who is so wrong for her. And she had this starvation energy of like, oh my God, I got to make this work. The guy was already showing signs that it wasn't a good idea. And it took her like a couple days to get there. But it was like something she was going to maybe jump into if he wanted to, because she had that energy. And you're right. I do think there's a place to kind of just go on some dates, see what happens, and kind of like fill your satchel a little bit before going on a date and then having nothing in there, right?
Well, and this sounds so counterintuitive, but I think there is a place for care less.
Yeah. I do. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Like, be less attached to whether you're gonna get a boyfriend or a husband or whatever out of this. Like, don't even think about that, don't get attached to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you took this time to work on yourself, get healthier. What were some of the things that you discovered about yourself or things that you decided to do differently about your love life?
One of the things I decided to do differently was to slow down, right? I still struggle with this exact thing a little bit because I think I took a lot of time off. And so then that, what we are just talking about happened a little bit where the first person I had a connection with, I kind of ran with it. And then I was like, wait a second. And I really focused on listening to what men were saying. That was something that was different. When I look back at my old partners, so many like blaring red flags within the first couple days. Because I think people always say men will tell you who they are. People will tell you who they are. Just period. On
Yeah.
both sides, you can listen how they are showing up about their exes, how they're talking about their friends. It tells you a lot about their character. So I started really paying attention to values. What lights you up? You know what I mean? Where do you spend your free time? Also, something that changed for me is like, do you have anywhere that you give all your information to? Like, who are you checking in with, right? Is it spiritual? Are you religious? I don't know. Do you go to therapy? Like, what is your program of how you navigate your life? I personally don't feel self-reliance is the way. I think we need some outside source, whatever that is for you, to kind of help guide and navigate your life. So, dating someone who was doing the work was also really important to me. And not in this like, because I feel like there's a lot of people who are like spiritual, like frauds these days who just know the
Yeah.
language but they aren't
Yep.
really doing anything. So looking at someone's actions and not getting caught up in their words. I mean, I'm actually actively working on that now because people can say so much. They can say so,
Right.
especially in the first few weeks, but really taking a pause, like what are their actions? What do they stand for? And is this someone I want to really invest in? That was the biggest change for me because before it was like he likes me, he's cute. That's about it. And I didn't go any further than that.
Well, sometimes you wanna get on the roller coaster, like, every once in a while, I know for me, every, like, maybe a few months, maybe, several times a year, I would meet someone that I was like, "Oh my god, I'm, like, in love." Not really, but that,
Yeah,
like, thing where you get, like, crazy for that person and they're, like, texting you all the time and you go on, like, a
so
date on a
fun.
Friday, then you go out again on Saturday, then you go out
Yeah,
again on Sunday, and it's so intense. It's so hard to to say, "Hey, you know what? We need to slow down," because you get so excited. You get
it's
so
so
excited
hard.
about it, and a lot
Yeah.
of time like, I know for me, every single time it ended up lame out because that's really not about getting, to know each other, that's more about, like, I'm riding this high, which has nothing to do with actually getting to know each other.
No, it really doesn't, but I always would get afraid to say anything to slow it down for fear then they're gonna
Yeah,
leave, and then it's gonna go
right.
away, and honestly, Heather, sometimes that little portion is just fun. Even if I know we're gonna, like, run into the wall, it's gonna crash and burn, and sometimes I just strap in and I'm like, "You know what? I'm ready. Let's do it," you
You're
know?
due for a fling every now and
Yeah,
then.
exactly, totally. I'm like, let's just see what happens."
Now, I'm interested, you are someone who, anyone that has who is invested in learning about dating and relationships, which you are. So you've talked to many, many, many people about this. So I'm interested in your perspective. Daters in growing numbers. Like it has been the younger generations, but it's now starting to come all the way up in terms of age and generations. A lot of daters, women especially, are declining to date at all. They're declining to get into relationships. Tons do not want to get married, or if they've been married, they're not getting married again. Drinking is down. Sex is down. What do you think is behind that phenomenon?
Honestly, I feel people are tired. That's what's behind that phenomenon. I think there's a lot more emphasis nowadays on independence, self love, self care, live your best life. You need to be happy. Think about yourself, right? So, this energy has seeped into our culture. In the last 20 years, right? It used to be more family focused. You need to struggle, stay no matter what, trudge through, don't give up, don't get divorced, don't do these things. But now this energy is around you got to do what's best for you. You. And I think there's definitely benefits to that. But I think at the end of it all, I was just talking about this yesterday with a friend. I don't know if we need to wear that every single day, right? I do think it's important to find somebody that you can partner with. For me, I've never been married, so I'm speaking from a single place, right? And I do understand because I do have friends that have been married that emphatically say, if this does not work out, I will not do this again. I will not get married again, right?
Yeah.
And I've also seen people say it and then it changes. One of the things I don't do is I don't ever say never anymore. For me, when people are like, I will never do this, I will never do that. I'm like, you don't know. If you're lucky, it's a long life. And if you could meet somebody that will break your never. That is one of my I will go to the grave with that. You can always meet someone that will break your never. So when people give you all these excuses like work is busy, this isn't a good time for me, all this and that, I don't want to hear any of that. Like I'm just like, whatever. Okay, you want to be with me, that's fine. But I really think that we've now shifted into this space where togetherness is not as important and the amount of options that we have and the amount of access that we have has created this energy of I can be at my house by myself, but then I can also pick up my phone and have a girl or a woman or a guy just come over to my house, have a moment with them, and then I can move on and do all the things for my day. But I think what we're forgetting is that as we get older, right? I don't know what they are feeling about this older generation, like 60, 70 years old. right?
Yeah, 'cause they're
Especially a lot.
dating, actually.
Right. Like, what are they doing? Is it important to have a partner? But now friendships are becoming more important, right? There people are cultivating all of these feelings that you would be giving to a partner in friendships, maybe in grandchildren and things like that. For me personally, I do want to grow old with someone, and that is what I do hope to happen. But again, I say this with the caveat is I've never been married. So like I don't know. Maybe, in 20 years I might be like, Heather, I ain't never doing that again. I don't know.
You wanna grow old with the right person, because I would
Exactly.
say the thing that's way worse than that is growing old with the wrong person who,
Absolutely.
it makes your life a lot worse. You mentioned something that I think is really interesting, and I know I've been thinking about this lately. So a few things here. You were talking about how you were looking for, as you're getting to know someone that you're dating, you wanna know what's their program, and you date men, so I'm specifically
Yeah.
talking about men here, that you really wanna know what their program is, and something that I would Venn diagram with that, there's a lot of talk about the male loneliness problem, and they have trouble
Mhm.
getting matches and all of that, and I know for me, like you, as I went along in dating, what I was looking for got more and more selective, and I got to the point where if you don't have your own friends and you don't have your own interests and hobbies, I'm not
Mm.
interested. Like, kind of like your version of the program, mine was like, "What's
Right.
your life look like?" Because so many men don't have things like that, and it's like, well, you're less attractive if there's nothing you're interested in, you don't have friends, whereas women, we have a million friends that we are
Million.
very close and active with, we all have things we like to do. What are you doing? Is
Exactly.
kind of what I think about.
Yeah. And I think there's, sometimes men that's a really vulnerable thing, and I don't know if
Yeah,
all these men wanna tap into that side of themselves, to get close to people, and as I said before, we do have this over independence now. It's like hyper independence, excuse me. And that does trickle down to even friendships, especially with men at times of like, who's your core group? And it does say a lot if a person doesn't have any friends, because also then you're going to be putting a lot of energy into me, which I don't mind. But now that I'm older, I do see the value of having your own life. I used to not see it. I would wanna meet someone and we're here. You know what I mean? Like, all the time,
yeah.
every day. And it took me a little while to grow into like, "No, let's miss each other a little bit. Let's put some space into things." That's something I would never say. And even hearing myself say it now, I'm like, "Oh my god, I've changed so much." Um but I do think it's important for people to have a some scaffolding around their life and also their own life with their friends, their family, their job, and things that they are interested in. Like introduce me to some new stuff, right? Like that's always
Yeah.
nice too.
Now, with all the conversations you have with people who are out there dating and talking about relationships, what are some of the things that you think people can do better in dating and relationships overall? Like, what are the things that you see that people make this mistake over and over again and you wish more people knew about it?
I wish people would take relationships and other humans more seriously. I think people are treating other humans as disposable because we're just sitting there swiping, 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 and I think we're losing the magic of intimacy. And we're losing the magic of really getting to know someone. And as I say on my show, a relationship to me does not start until you have your first disagreement. It just really does not start. That first 3-month trial period, like I don't
Yeah.
it's fun and it's great, but, I had one guy that I was about to start dating say that to me. He's like, "I wanna know how you show up in a disagreement, Drea." And I think that
Yeah.
is so important, and I think a lot of us are like I said, people are tired, and so it's like if somebody does, like, one thing, and I've been guilty of this too, we're like, "Okay, I'm out. I'm not gonna do this." So I wish people would slow down and remember the value of being with someone and wanting to be with a partner. Now, if you don't want to be and you want to be out there dating, a lot of people are like just getting out of things. That's another thing too on dating apps. Like, oh, how long have you been single? And if somebody goes about a year, it's always not true. I never believe it. About a year, it's probably like 5 months, a few weeks. Like you never really know. So that's something I wish that people would start doing differently. I wish people would take a minute in intimacy. I do. I think the value around sex these days, it's like a handshake. Nobody cares. That's a personal preference, obviously, like, everybody do whatever you wanna do. But I think it just cheapens things a little bit. Like, I'm not even saying you gotta wait 6 months or whatever, but just give it a little bit of a pause and
Yeah.
the energy around, like, "Did you sleep with them?" I'm like, "We went to brunch." Like, what where what did when did why did I wanna see his penis and pancakes? Like, what are we talking about here?
There
No,
were only pancakes. That
there
was
were
it.
only pancakes,
No
girl.
euphemisms,
No, like,
actual
why are we
pancakes.
doing this, you know? We went on a 3rd date, well, obviously, he's coming over, and I'm like, 3 meals and then my vagina's on a platter? Like, I don't understand what we're doing here. Now, like, if this is what you feel, you're 2 adults, live your life. But, to answer your question, it's like, I feel the combination of these things are just making us further and further and further away from each other. And I always wonder what the state of relationships will look like in 20 years. Like, will people, still care? I don't know. And it truly makes me sad. It makes me so sad because also I'm a lover girl. I'm a lover girl. And one thing I did want to add, Heather, is that there is this energy on both sides where everyone's going on dates like this with an attitude. People aren't
Yeah.
as open. They're guarded. They don't want you. They don't want you to think that they like you. And it's
Yes.
crazy.
I've been with my partner now for almost 4 years, and you were talking about how people go into dates now and they're kind of guarded, masked,
Yes.
and something that brought my point here is not so much about my partner, but how, like, with the ways that people stand out. I remember he showed up to our first date and he stood out to me because he was talking to me like a normal person. And I felt like I could be a normal person. We were asking each other normal questions. We were not putting on a show. It felt relaxed. And I think what you're onto, it almost makes me think about a larger issue of the anxiety people feel around dating because it
Mm.
is such a mess. And we bring that anxiety in and we put on the show with other people. We are anxious. We are guarded. We are always looking for the red flags. And it's like, I can't say don't do that because there are a lot of, people that are out of control out there. That's real. But it makes it really hard to connect to the good ones because you're just waiting for them to be terrible.
Yes, and
How do
that's
you,
what I'm saying, like, people go on dates, like, you know,
yeah,
they're
how is that
just
going to go anywhere good?
it's not, and so then you wanna lead with your heart carefully, which is what I do anyway. I do try to, like, be logical, be intellectual around it, but it's like as soon as my little heart pitter-patters and I like someone, it's like, and then
Out the door.
I've always been this way since I was 12 years old. I am the friend that says and does things on dates that my friends are like, "Dre, you can't say that. Dre, you can't do that." And I will die with the motto of you cannot say the wrong thing to the right person. When you like somebody, the concessions we make for people because they're hot,
Yeah.
because of their job, or because of their networking system, whatever it is, if you want to make something work with someone, you really can't say the wrong thing to the right person. I've seen people be absolutely insane on dates, and that person's still like, "Well, I'll see you on Thursday." Right? And I'm not saying go out there and be crazy, but I do not believe in wearing like a full mask and hiding who I am because I'm like, you're going to figure it out anyway. Like my friend lies about her age. I don't do any of that. You know what I mean? Because that
Yeah.
first trip you're going to go on together, you're like, oh, by the way, this is what my passport said. I don't want to do any of that.
Yeah.
Like,
How
and
are
I
you going to
can't.
have that conversation? And like, if the whole point is to, if that's the goal, and it's not everybody's goal, but if
It's
your
not.
goal is to get into a real relationship, any sort of lying or not getting to know who each other's real self is just gonna go against that goal.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I want nothing to do with that, and so, the scary thing too is, like, figuring out who's authentic, right? Like you said, you and your partner had, like, a normal conversation, and it's like you do kinda gotta be on alert a little bit, like, "Is he lying? Is he telling the truth?" And you don't wanna,
Right.
like, let that be the big umbrella, but it does unfortunately have to be a thought, especially if you're online dating. So, unless you meet somebody through
Yes.
a friend or at work or at a networking event, but you still kinda gotta be a little bit on guard until you figure out who they really are.
Well, and it goes to what you were saying earlier, slow down,
It's slow down.
because like, time reveals all, and so slow down a little bit, and those things are gonna start coming to light, but then your job is to pay attention, and when someone's telling you who they really are, you have to listen to that and stop trying to pretend that they're someone else or they want something else, because 'cause you're upset about it.
Exactly. I know I would see men online, they'd be like, "Oh, I don't want children." Like, it says, "I do not want children," but if he was cute, I'd be like, "Well, I could probably change his mind." Right? Like, I mean, I'm just gonna go
He's
out with
gonna
him and
love
see.
me.
He's gonna love me
Yeah,
and be like, "Oh my god, how can I have a baby with you?" Right? That is not the
right.
case. That does not happen like that.
That's not how that works.
No,
What do
it's
you
not.
think now, relative to online dating, what do you think about the "Are we dating the same guy" groups? I'm sure you're aware of those
I
as
am
someone who is in the know.
extremely aware of those groups, and I saw the value in them in the beginning of sort of, like, being like, "Hey, this guy, this person is, out here sleeping around or doing all these things. I don't see the value in posting someone that hasn't done anything just to see. Like, that does not make any sense to me. And this just only adds to the reasoning of why men are angry at women and why are we doing things like this? Because if I were on
Right.
some sort of, thread of like, hey, here's Drea Renee. You guys, she's a podcast host. Does anyone have any dirt on her? Like, I would be so offended, right? And I don't even want to date that person anyway. So I don't see the value in just putting someone out there just to then dig versus like, let me see what this experience is going to be like. And then if something crazy happens, whatever. But I don't know if it's a good thing. I don't know if it's a good thing.
Well,
Yeah.
it kinda shows how I've 100% agree with you because I think in the beginning there was a lot more. The vibe was more, "Hey, this person assaulted me," or "This
Exactly.
person hurt me in a very real way." And now it feels like a lot of the posts are, to your point, anyone got the dirt, or things like, "Oh, they stopped talking to me," or "They said they wanted a relationship and then they broke up with me," which newsflash, people get to do that. There's
People
nothing
get to
wrong
do
with
that.
that. People change their minds. Things don't work out. That is actually normal and doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. Things just don't work out. And guess what? Not everybody's
Exactly.
gonna like you.
Right. We went on an amazing date. We had an amazing kiss. I never heard from him again. Does anyone it's like, no, that's not to me, that's not the purpose of those sites, right? So it's like if you stole your money, you were assaulted, things like that, these major things where it's like, guys, like look out for this guy. Then I
Right,
think these things make sense. But just to dig or to say the guy didn't text me back, it's like, girl, just go journal. Call your girlfriends. Like, I mean, what are
right,
we blasting these men for? And I think women need to take accountability for the consequences of doing things like this and what that means,
right.
as the trickle down effect.
Well, yeah, sometimes I'm really confused because I feel like if you do one of those posts like, "Hey, I'm going out with this person on Friday. He seems really great," but my gut says something is off, which I hate those because it's like your gut. There's actual research that says your gut is actually wrong quite often.
Like, or just don't go out with the guy. You know what I
But you're
mean?
not gonna know. It's like this seems like a sure way. Like this is an example of women's anxiety being their own worst enemy.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I hear you. I'm like, yeah, just don't, if that's what you feel strongly, don't go out with him then. You don't need to put the guy
Right,
on blast because you feel anxiety about it.
right. That is a you thing that you need to deal with. Now,
Exactly.
as we're getting wrapped up here, from all of your conversations with people and also your own experience, what do you think has been like the biggest driver of feeling more empowered in your dating life and taking charge of getting what you want out of dating and relationships?
I think my biggest driver, unfortunately, in some ways, has been my past of really trying to not make those same mistakes again, changing the pace, being open to the experience, and also being open to it not working out, right? Not being so like tight, closed fist on these experiences, having to be my husband, and just leaning into the experience of dating, right? That's been a big driving force for me because I think I used to go on these dates just like, "Are you my husband? Are you my husband? Are you my husband?" But now I'm just
I'm
like,
sure
"You know
people
what?
love that.
And you can feel it, and you can feel it. So I've dropped that now and just really, like, leaning into, like, let me look at this person, clean slate, I know nothing about them, and just really enjoying getting to know someone on, the beginning of an experience like that. So that's really driven me, and then also being okay on my own. Being okay not to the point where I don't wanna partner with someone, but this relationship isn't going to be like, you know, I need it like the air that I breathe. Like, that has also changed my entire energy around dating. Like, I'm gonna be okay, and I used to not feel that way, and I know a lot of people can relate to that. Like, I got a partner, especially as you get older, but taking that out of it and being like, "No, I'm gonna be fine. The sun's gonna rise again. Everything's gonna be okay." Even if it's not okay for a bit, learning from that experience and knowing, like, I can be alone. I don't need this guy to save my life.
I think you're offering some life-changing dating advice actually and relationship advice, being okay if it doesn't work out.
Yes, that is a big thing, Heather, and I did not think about that until, like, the last 3 years. I'm like, "It's okay if it doesn't work out," right? Like, everybody's gonna be
Yeah.
okay because the other ones
I feel
didn't
like you
work
said
out.
that to yourself in the mirror once in a while.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, like, this date is just a date, and I say a date is not a down payment on a marriage. It's not. It's just a date alone. This man could be dating other women. He probably is. And that's okay. We're both trying to figure out what we want to do here. And he doesn't owe me anything and I don't owe him anything.
Well, not being okay with things not working out is how you end up in bad marriages, in relationships for multiple years where you're chasing that man, trying to get him to love you, abusive situations. Like, not
Right.
being okay with things not working out is really like so counter it sounds so counterintuitive. But to your point from what you said earlier, we hang on, we like try not to get divorced, we try not to have things end. And while there's value in being committed, there is a tipping point where you are holding on too hard and it's actually out of fear. It's not because you actually like that
Exactly.
person or love that person. It's because you don't want to be alone or you're afraid of it ending, which that's not a good reason to fight for your marriage or your
No.
relationship.
And I woke up with fear for many years in a relationship with someone that I was going to die to try to make it work with. And this man was not in love with me. And I intuitively knew it the entire time. I knew it. I knew it. But I just wanted to make it work. I wanted to make it work.
Isn't it how when we really like listen to ourselves and if we're honest with ourselves, those kinds of truths come to light? We know it.
Oh,
We
yeah.
know it deep down and we just try
We
to
know
like
it.
not pay attention to it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Drea, thank you so much for being here today, sharing your story and all of your, you know so much about the subject space from your podcast. You do a lot of good work out there. Where can people find you if they want to work with you or they want to hear more from you and what you have to say?
Yeah, you can find me at Hey Babe Can We Talk on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, YouTube, all the things. I always answer DMs. And yeah, if you guys want to work with me, please reach out. You can email me also at heybabe@heybabecanwetalk.
All right, amazing. And I'll put all this in the show notes. So nobody has to like scribble this down. You can
Yeah.
just go to the show notes and click on it. Make it easy. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to all of you who are listening to the Happily Never After today, especially those of you who are on your own journey. Be okay with it not working out.
Yes.
Hope you have a great week.